Hope you're doing well today. Uh, I got an interesting email and got me thinking about some things that maybe might help you if you have a similar issue going on. Let me read, I printed it out here. Um, Hi, Paul. I'm really enjoying your book, Potential Not Pathology. Thank you, by the way, for purchasing the book. And enjoy the creativity you have in your work. My question for you is why do I stop myself from being creative with my clients? I notice I will come up with a really good series of ideas that are really out of the ordinary and I think will help them, but I hesitate to implement them. I guess I wonder if I am just too scared to be creative. Do you have any advice for me? Best wishes, and I won't give their name because their privacy. Well, if you're watching this and you're the one who wrote the email, this is for you. But I think it's also for other people who, in general, want to be creative in their work, whether it's psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, coaching, whatever. Um, and I'll just refer to all of that under the heading of therapists and therapy. Um, I have found that one of the biggest blocks for people to be creative in their therapy sessions, a lot of times, is the idea that there's a certain way to be creative. So something that's supposed to be kind of spontaneous and at time improvisational then becomes a directive to themselves. Okay, now it's time to be creative. Now it's time to implement something. Now it's time to do one of those crazy things that someone else, I read about, has done. And I find any form of excessive rigidity when trying to come up with assistance, solutions, directives, tasks often inhibits their implementation. And it also opens up a lot of self doubting on the part of the therapist. Because if you feel that you're kind of forcing yourself to be creative, maybe it's not the right time to be creative. Now, this is totally different, as in you get an idea and you kind of play out, okay, is this a good idea or not? So if you're trying to um, direct yourself to become, okay, it's a bit of a paradox, be spontaneous right now, uh, you're going to have some limited results. The other thing, excuse me, the other thing that I have found with people who are, as in this person said that they're scared or they wonder if they're scared to be creative, is that maybe they are holding on to this idea that doing something that is a little different is unethical or unreasonable or something like that. If you're anyone that has any sense of uh, honor and ethics, then that's not an issue. And if you wonder if you're being unethical, I invite you to read your profession's ethical guidelines. I don't think you'll find anything that I have written about and talked about on these videos as being unethical. I'm actually a fairly ethical person, and I try to bear that in mind. If you are giving a client a task, this is where it gets a little tricky. If you're trying to be creative with a task or an idea, uh, I think it's helpful to just stop in the moment in your own mind and go, is this for me or is this for the client? Because sometimes we have a tendency to want to do something to show to ourselves we can do it, or just wouldn't it be cool? Or I noticed when this person did it, something really cool happened, and our client becomes our experimental subject. And we need to be careful with that. If we are coming up with something spontaneous or just we see a clear pattern to interrupt in a creative way, it needs to be, in my opinion, all about the client. If it's not something that's there to assist the client, to help the client, to move them closer to finding their own solutions or accessing their own resources, there may be a reason why we're scared to implement it because we don't want to A part of us does not want to kind of direct people when it's all about us. So if we're too worried that we're going to harm the client with these directives, that's a totally different conversation. If you are someone again who's an ethical person, uh, you know just want to follow all those guidelines. If it's not harmful to the person, there's no problem. Here's my rule of thumb. I've talked about this before. Would I do it? If my therapist told me, I want you to do this, would I be willing to do that? If I'm not willing to do something that somebody would to tell me in a therapy situation where I was the client, then I probably won't do that to the client. I have rarely asked my clients to do things that I would be totally unwilling to do, totally opposed to. Now, again, it changes person by person. And if we have a good therapeutic relationship, therapeutic alliance, rapport with the client, then we have a lot of good wiggle room to kind of try out ideas and again co-create the direction in which therapy is going. But if I'm not willing to do it, then I won't ask anyone else to do it. So I'm rarely afraid of my creativity or scared, as I think as the person asked, of my creativity because it's not something that I think is going to be out of line with where the client is. It may be something that sounds a little wacky, a little different, but it doesn't violate the core of who they are or the purpose that they're coming in. And I try to make it about the client. Now, I will be completely honest. Early on in my career, that wasn't always the case. And I kind of found that a lot of times when I was doing things, it was more about me trying to figure out, how things work and experimentation. And I'm not happy with that part of my career. And I've learned since then that it's really about the client. Even if a lot of that stuff worked, it's about my intention. If my intention is for the client to get better, I don't need them to be my metaphoric lab rat. I need to be there for them and to understand their position and what's important to them. And what's really funny is when I just said, okay, it's all about the client, I actually got more creative. I was able to just really tune into more where the client is going, where they don't want to go, and just kind of see where to take the session. Lastly, if you're hesitant because you're scared, maybe because one feels a fear of rejection. Your clients may tell you, well, I'm not going to do that, or that's a dumb idea, or I don't know about that, or they just may say no. And you know what? That's okay. Because even if the client doesn't do what we're asking them to do, I want you to think about this. They've still made a choice, they've still taken charge in their own life. So if I said, okay, today I want you to go home and rearrange your bookshelf and put everything in alphabetical order and then rearrange it the other way. And the client goes, I'm just not going to do that. You can go, oh, I've been rejected. I'm a terrible therapist. They didn't take it. Or worse, you're a resistant client and those kind of battles. Or I can just think to myself, well, they know better than me. They know themselves well, and they have said, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm not going to do. They've made a choice. And we want our clients to make choices what they feel is in their best interest, is authentic for them. So if it's a fear of rejection, maybe just kind of shift the way you're looking at that rejection because down deep, if we're really there for the client, we have that therapeutic alliance. The fact that your client says no might be a signal that you're on the right track, and then you could say, "Huh, they're standing up for themselves, or they're taking charge of their life." And great way to utilize that into further interventions. So last thing just on that is if you are finally scared, get a good supervisor or a colleague to talk to who is creative by nature and wants to encourage you to be creative within these ethical guidelines and the things that we've already talked about and bounce ideas off him or her. A lot of supervisors, unfortunately, are kind of rigid or stuck to their theory. So maybe you have to go outside your circle and look at other places and find people to consult with. who will encourage you to be authentic in your therapy as the therapist. And hopefully that will open up new possibilities for your work. So, anyway, thank you for the question. I think it's an important question. And just remember to trust yourself. I think a lot of times we just don't trust ourselves, and I think that's a missing piece that we could probably talk more about. But everyone have a great day, and good luck with your work.